This episode of Back to the Roots podcast is brought to you by Byron Seeds. The folks at Byron Seeds believe organic requires a different perspective, plan, and approach. Organic isn't simply a different type of product or even a different way of farming. It's a different way of thinking, planning, commitment. It's a different philosophy on how to feed the world. Many won't understand, but the people at Byron Seeds do. We're owned by organic dairy farmers. We not only have the product, but we plan, manage, and execute organic. We speak your language, we share your struggles, and we laud your successes. Organic isn't a way of doing business, it's a community. We learn from each other. We're in this together. We'd be glad to talk cropping plans, management systems, the road to profitability. We understand what you're trying to do. We're farmers just like you. Visit us at byronseeds.net or give us a call at 800-801-3596. And thanks to Byron Seeds. This episode of Back to the Roots podcast is also brought to you by Soil Biotics. Soil Biotics Organic Growth Boost is a liquid humic acid product that promotes the conversion of nutrient elements such as NP and K into forms more available to plants, thereby improving uptake of nutrients, micronutrients, and water by plants. It also improves the biological structure of the soil by helping to neutralize both acid and alkaline soils. Soil Biotics SB4400 is a liquid product containing a combination of living beneficial microorganisms that allows plants to take in nitrogen from the atmosphere, enhances natural growth promoting functions in the plant, and can increase organic matter and CEC in the soil. Soil Biotics organic products are formulated to work together to provide a continuous beneficial growth environment to meet all of your organic agricultural needs. For product details, visit soilbiotics.com.
You're listening to Back to the Roots podcast. I'm Mike Klein, and along with Brian Wood, we are at the Homestead Festival in Columbia, Tennessee, and we are joined by Emilie Toups, who is the founder of worldwide non-toxic beauty brands Toups Co Organics, a company dedicated to pure, safe, and nourishing skincare and makeup. She began Toups Co right in her own kitchen with a passion for products with recognizable ingredients. Emilie also has a passion for education and teaching holistic skincare practices with an emphasis on recognizing ingredients. She lives on a farm in South Alabama with her husband and 4 children, where she enjoys cooking, gardening, nourishing food, and baking sourdough bread. Emilie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Could you give us a little bit of your background and what got you to today?
So my husband and I were living just a regular standard American life, and when we had our first child, she had eczema and a lot of allergies. So we started on this kind of a lifelong, journey to where we are. A lot of research and things, and we discovered and learned a lot of things that we didn't know, and it just really changed and shaped our lives into where we are right now.
I see. So it was necessity that got you to start looking at ingredients and going that direction?
Yeah, pain point. When the doctors are telling you that there's nothing that they can do, and they're giving you petroleum products and steroids and they're not working, they're saying that you can't even use them for a long time. I was like, that's not an answer. I'm going to find a better answer than that. And so we did some research, and we came across tallow. And when we were like, oh, tallow, that's very interesting. And, at the same time, we were learning about the food that we were eating and how important it was that we take these processed foods and allergens out of our diet. And that ultimately led us to homesteading. And so before we even started Toups Co, we bought 20 acres. And I like to tell people that before we even closed on our house, I had bought a milk cow, and we were like gung-ho. We were going to do it. And we just saw such an incredible change in our children's lives. Our daughter, who was suffering with really extreme bad eczema. And the rest is history. Now here we are. We started with just a few products, and I love them, and we saw just the nourishing ingredients and the simple ingredients make an incredible difference in her skin and in her life. And so we started to sell a few on Etsy and kind of just try to, I don't even know, my husband was working out of town, and I was like, this will be fun. And here we are 6 years later. This is we do Toups Co full time. A lot of our family works for us, and we love it. We love education. We love empowering other people to have the knowledge to make better choices for themselves.
Mm-hmm. And it started with food. So you started with food, and then you went into the products.
Yeah.
Okay.
So food was first. We watched a documentary, and I think it was like Hungry for Change or one of those. And my husband and I were watching it, and when it was over, we were like, we have a change to make. And we literally got a black garbage bag out, and we went into the pantry, and we just like threw everything away. And so we looked at each other, and we were like, okay, now what are we going to eat? And we, discovered Weston A. Price Foundation and homesteading, and we decided we were going to produce as much food on our property as we could for ourselves and our children. And it's just been a life-changing experience. And, I mean, once you can't go back.
Mm-hmm. I am kind of how would I say, my wife is a label reader, and I started doing it too, because once you start, you can't stop. You pick up something and you just read the label, and
you're like, oh no,
it's pretty awful.
Yeah. And I would tell my husband a few things, like I'd read something about a certain ingredient or a product, and I almost didn't want to tell him, because he's like black or white. If I say like this is bad, we shouldn't partake in that anymore, he will never again. Where I'm like, it's just a one time, and so I would have to be real careful about what I told him, because he was like, oh, the kids will never eat that again. And I'm like, well, that was one of our like convenience foods.
What were some of the things what were some of those things in processed foods, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
And some of the products they used to...
So even like some of the like veggie straws and things that were like marketed as natural or better than like a chip or for kids, we're reading the ingredients and we're seeing canola oil and just all these ingredients that I'm like, I really don't want to feed our kids that. And he'll see it and pick it up, and he's like, canola oil, you bought that? And so, over the years, it just takes so much time to learn enough where you get in a routine and the foods that you eat, and what's safe and it's good. But in the beginning, you don't know anything else. So it's really difficult to be like, well, now there's a fridge full of foods to cook, but there's nothing in there that we can just literally walk in and eat right now. Everything has to be prepared because it's whole foods. And that was an interesting time in our life as we transitioned and just followed a lot of people online and recipes and other mothers that were blogging about it. And that's really where I first got our start and first started to learn.
Well, I know it can be really overwhelming to try to eat healthy. That sounds very strange, but
yes.
You just need a simple product to add to a dish you're trying to make, and it's like you can't find a healthy version of that, whatever that product may be.
Yeah. I mean, it's something as simple as like mayonnaise.
Yeah.
And then they'll have olive oil on the front. And you're like, oh, the olive oil mayonnaise. That one's better. And then you pick it up, and the first ingredient is soybean oil. Mm-hmm. And so, I really love empowering people to turn it around and read the ingredients, because the marketing or whatever they have on the front is often misleading. They're going to produce that product as cheap as possible, and that means that they put olive oil on the front, soybean oil on the back. That's just pretty much what you're finding in stores right now.
So where is a good spot for, say, I've got no knowledge whatsoever of, I've always eaten McDonald's or, Hungry Man dinners. I don't even know if those exist anymore. But anyway, where would I even start, like, looking? What are the big things that you say?
No to as far as food goes?
Or a place to start.
A place to start? A good, like Weston A. Price Foundation is a really great start. Get Nourishing Traditions and just read through the book. It can seem very overwhelming, but that was the first thing that I did. I read all the way through the book, and then I was like, okay, how can we apply this to our family in a way that works for us? And that's how we got started.
Mm-hmm. So you bought a cow for the raw milk?
For the raw milk, yeah.
Okay.
So raw milk was illegal, or you had to drive like hours to find it. But I wanted this like super nutrient dense food for our kids, and I was like, well, we have to have a cow then. And my husband, neither he or I have any farming experience. We both we lived in suburbia, we lived in subdivisions, and we had nothing or no knowledge about running a farm. But we learned really quickly. I tell people that our cow had her calf, and it was like time to milk her. So we had watched these YouTube videos, and he's like, you get on one side and I'm going to get on one side, and we're just going to sit here and we're going to figure it out. And we did. And that was like 7 years ago. And, we've kind of expanded our farm now and knowledge. We've made plenty of mistakes, but how else to learn unless you decide to just do and make the mistakes? And that's kind of what we did.
So you're still just milking one cow, or do you expand the herd?
No, we have two, and we kind of will go back and forth between them, but we just provide food for our own family.
Okay.
Yeah, Toups Co is our number one. We've got time for one thing. We can either sell our stuff from our homestead or do that, and we chose that.
And you're food self-sufficient basically on the homestead?
We produce a lot of our food, and we supplement with like Azure Standard. We get a drop once a month, and we do that, but grains and salt and sugar and things like that. But we produce in the summer most of our vegetables, milk, cheese, meat, eggs, chickens, and that's it. We will buy a pastured pork from somebody that does that better than us.
Talk about Toups Co.
Okay.
So did that start at the same time as the homestead did, or was it through that the homestead started?
So once we started homesteading and learning about food, I was looking at our personal care products and also turning those around and reading the labels, and I was like, oh, wow. We had already changed our laundry detergent out and some things like that. And my daughter's skin was getting better. I was learning about tallow and making some tallow bombs, but she came one day into my makeup bag, and she's like, oh, Mommy, can I have your lip gloss? And I was like, I don't know. And I was looking at it, and it was awful. And I'm looking up online, I'm reading this lead and things in it. And so it was one of the very last things to go was my own products. I was doing all the things for everybody else in the family, but then I was like, oh, I still have my, makeup, my stuff that I like. And once I realized that I really wanted to make a difference and I wanted clean ingredients, I was like, we can just make these. Why can't we? And we added a product every year or two. My sister came on board. She's a chemical engineer, and we were figuring out formulations and talking about products. And that's how we developed the rest of the product line. And we made most of the products ourselves for a very long time. And the last 2 years, we moved into a manufacturing facility. And now we just moved into a bigger manufacturing facility, and it's just been an incredible blessing. I love having products that people can come, and I'm like, there's everything you can use on this table. And they'll email and they'll say, can I use these products while I'm pregnant? Yes, everything here is safe for your child. While you're pregnant, you don't have to ask. We aren't going to use those ingredients at Toups Co. And that's kind of our mission statement, and our core mission is to have safe products for everyone and that everyone can use and at an affordable price. And it's been really nice. It's been fun, a long journey.
What did you start with?
The tallow bombs were first.
Tallow bomb.
And then I think we added deodorant.
Can you explain what a tallow bomb is?
So tallow is beef fat, and we purchased from several grass-fed farms all in the southern region and render the tallow. We render all the tallow ourselves. I think it's really important to keep the integrity of the tallow, and all of the vitamins and minerals that are in there. We render it in a really slow process, triple strain it, and it's just like this beautiful liquid gold full of vitamin K and D and E. Grass-fed tallow has 4 times the amount of vitamin E than conventional beef. And so that's really important for us to source grass-fed beef. And it's actually a lot easier in the South because we don't have snow. And even farmers who aren't 100% on board with the regenerative model or 100% grass-fed, it's actually cheaper for them to grass-feed their cattle, where 365 days a year, we can be grazing out in the pasture. So we've made some really cool connections with some awesome grass-fed farmers from Louisiana to Florida up to Tennessee, and we source tallow from them and whip it up into a balm with organic cold pressed olive oil, and that's the basis of the tallow balm, and that's it.
Wow, because I'm really not up on the makeup side, so Like,
No kidding, Mike.
there's not enough makeup in the world for this. But, like, you just took the ingredients that were on there and then formulated your own healthy version of that?
No, so we just rendered tallow, just the product, added some olive oil to make it softer, and I whipped it up in my KitchenAid in our house for the first time. I was putting it on my daughter's eczema and on her skin because it's so anti-inflammatory, and I had read that. And so the first time we ever made tallow, I looked up grass-fed farms where we were living in Mississippi, found one, called them, and I was like, can I get some tallow? They were like, what is that? And I was like, like the fat from the cows, the beef fat. And she's like, well, we don't really get that back from the butcher, but if you want some, I can ask them if we can get a little pack. How much do you want? And I was like, I don't know, a couple pounds. And she called me back a few weeks later, and she's like, I talked to the butcher, and I got you some of that stuff you call tallow. It's beef fat. And she met me on the side of the road and gave me a pack. And I went home, and I was like, okay, now what do we do with this? And we cut it up, and we put it in the oven, and we rendered it down. And you strain off the solids, which would be like the equivalent of like pork rinds, whatever's floating to the top. And then you're left with an oil, just like you would have olive oil or any kind of other oil, except that animal fat, tallow, is 98% bioidentical to our own skin's oils because we're animals as well. And it penetrates better than any kind of plant oils, coconut oil or jojoba or any of those other oils. And because it's full of conjugated linoleic acid, which they're getting from grass-fed, they're being outside in the sun, they're getting vitamin D from the sun. It's so anti-inflammatory, and we were just blown away that it worked. I was like, I read it on the internet, got some tallow. Now we have it. I guess I'm going to put it on her. And the results were just so amazing. And I was like, this is what we were missing. We were missing this just nutrient dense. We were feeding our skin with our skincare instead of trying to cover something up. And that, continued to just open our eyes to more things and broaden, what we thought was normal or what we thought was healthy. And, I love to share that with other people because they're struggling. They're getting petroleum products from the store. They're getting steroids from their doctor. And, it's a major pain point for a parent to watch their kids, crack and bleed and ooze from eczema, and they don't know why. And mainstream medicine gives you no answer. And so I was determined to find some kind of answer. And tallow is not the end-all, be-all. It's also gut health. So we combined, our change in diet and gut health with tallow and clean skincare products. And her skin is amazing. And, that was it for me. I was like 100% sold forever. So that was, that's an answer to our prayers.
The craziest part about that story is the farmer didn't know what tallow was.
No, at the time, no one was asking for it. And they put, some of it back into their ground beef, but all of the extra, they had no use for it.
Right, yep.
And it used to be restaurants would buy it, and they would like fries and, in tallow. And, with the vegan movement, they've moved away from all animal fats, and they're frying now in these, synthetic oils or canola and rapeseed oil, which now is only even available from the Industrial Revolution. We're able to really isolate and extract these oils when our ancestors would have never even had access to that. They maybe had access to olive oil and animal fats, and that was about the extent of the oils or skincare that they would have used. They also used tallow to make soap. So when they would butcher whatever animal was on their farm, they would save the rest of the fat, and they would have tallow or lard, and then they would mix it with lye, and that would be the soap for their entire family. And we are so far removed from that. The next thing that we made was soap with the tallow. I had read all about it, and I was like, film like Little House on the Prairie. We're going to make soap from tallow, from animal fat. And I was like sharing it with all of our family and people we knew, and they were like, it's made from what? And I was like, look, just try it, okay? I promise you're going to like it.
My mom always made soap from tallow, but she used it in her wringer washer.
Yeah.
Like not for hand soap, but that was her laundry detergent.
Laundry detergent, for sure. Cool.
I still remember helping her strain when I was a little kid.
That's really, really neat.
Yeah. So is tallow the basis of pretty much all your whole line of products?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
We have a few products that don't have tallow in it just because it's waxy and maybe it's not like eyeshadow or something like that. But every product that I can get tallow into, I do.
Okay. And you said it is 98% the same as our skin.
Yeah, so on a molecular structure, our skin's oils and tallow is 98% identical, which makes sense. And, it's just we are animals, and that's our oil. And so when I read that, I was like, well, that's what we want. That's what I'm looking for in my search. And so that's what kind of really, that exact sentence or that fact is what made me really search out to get some tallow.
What is your best selling product that you make?
Our frankincense tallow balm. Okay. For sure. Number one year over year.
And that's just a lotion?
It's just tallow and olive oil and frankincense, and we whip it really soft, the frankincense for the face, and that's our top selling product.
We're showing our ignorance in skincare routines, if you can't quite tell. But
you should get some tallow. My husband uses it now religiously because he works out in the sun, and he's like, he is a Iraqi veteran, and he came back from Iraq with like a little bit of skin cancer on his head, and I was like, listen, I'm going to put the tallow right here on your forehead where you have sun damage. And, because the doctor was like, you need to come back every 6 months and get that checked out. And it like flaked off and it's gone. And I was like, see, it's the tallow, it's the frankincense.
But as far as, so you're talking like your child had eczema or skin cancer, I haven't had any of those issues. So if I'm just an everyday person that wants to make sure my skin is healthy, besides diet, what kind of skincare routine? I go in the aisle and you got shelves and shelves of washes and moisturizers and creams.
So it just needs to be so simple: a tallow or lard-based soap, a moisturizer like tallow for your face, and that's it. I mean, there's nothing else that we need. It's what our ancestors used: soap and a moisturizer, and that's really basic. And our skincare routines are really basic. But like people ask, is there something different that I need like for around the eye area? Is this safe? I'm like, it absolutely is. That is marketing that you need some special product that's like in a small container that you would only use by your eyes. And I'm like, well, then what's in the regular face cream that we shouldn't use it around our eyes? That's really interesting. So, yeah.
What is it?
I don't know. I mean, it's toxic, so our eyes are sensitive, and they don't want you to put it near your eyes. It might burn, or it might,
Shouldn't that tell us something?
It should, yeah. That doesn't tell you something.
But it's fine for everywhere else but around your eyes, right?
What is?
Like that lotion that you're not
That's what they say, but
right.
In my opinion, I don't think it's fine for anywhere because we don't want to be putting toxins on our skin. Our skin is our largest organ, and we're absorbing it directly into our bloodstream. I like to tell people that, you can take medication through transdermal patches. So what does that tell you about everything else you put on your skin? We're absorbing it, and it's going right into our bloodstream.
Well, it leads me to like stuff like bug spray, DEET, or sunscreen, those kinds of things. We're told that it's required. You can't go outside.
Oh, you shouldn't go outside. You're going to get skin cancer if you're in the sun. But excuse me, we need vitamin D. So we're such a vitamin D deficient population, and we're putting sunscreen on every time we walk outside, or we're covering up. And so we're not even able to get sun. And I think it's really important to be outside and get sun in moderation. Obviously, you don't want to be burning. But if you do need sunscreen, there are other natural options and zinc-based sunscreens.
I find it interesting that we probably use we're either number one or number two in sunblock use in the world.
In America.
Yet our skin cancer rates are off the charts. Yet you never hear of countries along the equator having skin cancer, yet the sun beats down all the time. It's the sunscreen, right?
Yeah, and I like to tell people to eat their sunscreen. So if we're eating saturated fats, if we're not mineral deficient, we're not going to burn as much. And that was very interesting to me when I was kind of going on this journey of like no sunscreen. Like every summer, we're like bringing everybody down, can't go in the sun without it. But if you look at the introduction of oxybenzone, which is chemical sunscreen, and the rise of skin cancer, when you look at the graph, they kind of go up at the same time. The more sunscreen we use, the more skin cancer we have. And before we were using any sunscreen at all, we had very minimal rates of skin cancer. And there's not one thing that you can say the oxybenzone is causing skin cancer. At the same time, we're also eating worse. We're nutrient deficient. We're mineral and vitamin deficient. And we're expecting our bodies to be healthy, yet we're not giving it anything to, we wouldn't put water in our car and expect it to run. We're not eating healthy. But we are going to the doctor and they're not telling us that diet is important. You know, I have a friend, she has Crohn's, and the doctor's like, it has nothing to do with your diet. And I was like, I'm going to tell you different. I am not your doctor, but I'm going to tell you different. It definitely has to do with your diet. Let's try something else. Let's do, a version of like carnivore and a few plants. Give your gut some time to heal. And she's seen such, and I mean, I'm not taking any credit for her healing. She had to do her own research, but it was opposite of what mainstream medicine told her. And so just in that one instance, we're seeing, you know, I'm kind of to the point where, you know, we are rebelling in every area. You know, we're not doing what the doctor is saying. We're not eating that food. We're not using that skincare or sunscreen or all these things, but we're so much healthier for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important, that we don't have to listen to everything that we hear from someone with, you know, alphabet soup behind their name. But we need to do our own research, because things are not regulated in the U.S. I think there's like 1,300 chemicals banned in the European Union, and in the U.S. they ban 11. So, you know, so the FDA is saying, yeah, this is safe, we can put it on the shelf, but yet we're having other countries saying this is not even safe for our population at all. But they can sell it in America. So just educating yourself, learning how to read labels, actually reading them and not reading the marketing or greenwashing on the front, and flipping it over. Using apps like Switch Natural or Think Dirty, you can just take a picture of the ingredient list, and it kind of helps you learn what those ingredients are, how they rate them. That was kind of fun in the beginning of like learning all of this. I relied on things like that because I didn't know what oxybenzone was, and it kind of sounded scary, but was it? It's in sunscreen at Walmart on the store shelf, so it must be safe. And you know, it's not. And you have to do your own research. It's kind of up to us to read those ingredients for ourselves and educate ourselves. Otherwise, we just don't know. Mm-hmm. And there's so many people that don't know. And it's almost not their fault. This information is really suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I said earlier, that's where it gets overwhelming, because
it can get overwhelming for sure.
You say, okay,
you're like, I can't do anything healthy.
Right, exactly. Or the other part of it is you say, okay, I really want to make a good decision about the sunscreen I put on my kids. So you go to Walmart and you see copper tone all natural or whatever, and then
you're like, oh, I'm gonna get that. That's way better.
That is the best one.
Yeah,
but you're paying an extra $1 more for probably the exact same thing.
Yeah, if you flip it over, it's
the can's different.
Yeah, it's a lighter color. Yeah.
It's green.
You mentioned something about getting a sunburn and diet.
So eat your sunscreen.
Yeah, eat your sunscreen. So Weston A. Price teaches that having adequate retinol stores. Dr. Price studied these indigenous cultures along the equator, and what they had that we did not have was retinol. And so we get retinol from saturated fats like tallow and lard, cod liver oil, like salmon and some fatty fishes and things like that. And as a country, or even as the world as a whole, it's been so anti-fat. It's been, you know, low fat this and 0% fat, and so we're no longer getting retinol. And as our retinol stores, which is vitamin A, but vitamin A, beta carotene, it takes 12 units of beta carotene to convert to 1 unit of retinol. So you can eat all the carrots that you want. You're going to eat 12 times as much as you're going to find in animal sources, which is true retinol. And when your retinol stores are adequate, then when you go outside, you don't burn it as much. And like, to me, that was mind-blowing information. So I was like, okay, we're gonna try it out. You know, we're kind of olive skin. We go to the beach every summer, and we always got to get that like first burn in before we're like ready for the summer. And I started giving my kids cod liver oil, egg yolks, and saturated fat and broth and things. And we're going out all day, and they're not burning. And it took them less time to get to that point than my husband and I guess it's just from years and years of being so deficient. It took us a lot longer, because I was like, oh, I actually got burned today. No one else did, or my husband would. And I just realized that we were probably far more deficient than they were as children, and it just took us a longer time to get to the point where we could tolerate the sun better by eating more retinol.
But sunburn, cod liver oil, which I'm not sure. I think I take the sunburn because cod liver oil is terrible.
They have virgin pressed cod liver oils like Rositas that aren't nearly as bad as maybe what you thought when you were growing up.
That was you said a bad word. Mom would give me a spoonful of cod liver oil.
You had a good mom.
And I also didn't get sunburned
cod
as a kid.
liver oil, tallow soap. Man, I didn't grow up that way, but I kind of wish that I did. But my kids are. Yeah, we mix it with honey, and sometimes I put a little bit of lemon in there, and I mix it up in the morning, and spoon to each kid, and they just accept it now. They're ready.
You started them young enough that they don't know that they...
My husband and I still take it in capsules. We're not quite able to take the liquid. But
that's why you got sunburned.
Yeah.
So you could use tallow in cooking. Would that help your retinol levels?
Yes. Yeah. So we love to cook with tallow. We use all the whatever's not fit and good enough for skincare. Maybe it has a slight smell. We're like, oh, that's our home cooking tallow. And we will fry French fries in it. I've made sourdough donuts and fried in tallow. My husband's like, you should open a restaurant. I was like, you just have never had so nutritious of what we consider junk food, but made with excellent ingredients. I mean, our ancestors ate wheat, they ate bread, they fried things in tallow, and they were healthy. And so we've just changed these foods, or we are programmed to think that they're bad, they're unhealthy, they're junk food. But we can make them healthy and nutritious, and as a treat, and we do that sometimes.
That is exciting to hear.
Well, they used to make McDonald's French fries in tallow.
Yeah.
And then it was taken away because of, wasn't it the whole trans fat thing?
It was bad for your heart. That's another thing, that saturated fats will give you heart disease. Yeah. But none of our ancestors who primarily ate a saturated fat diet had heart disease. So it's obviously something else. And I think that even mainstream is coming around now and realizing that it's actually the seed oils that we're eating, not the saturated fat. Seed oils are oxidizing and causing disease and inflammation.
And the obesity levels were way lower when they were eating what we are now saying are horrible foods for your diet.
Right. I mean, if you look at a picture of families at the beach in the 50s or 40s and 50s, they were tan. There wasn't anyone that wasn't. They were tan and they were thin and they looked healthy. They had muscles and they looked great. Everyone on the beach. Go to the beach today and take a photo, and you just see so many unhealthy people, and we've just been brainwashed to believe the wrong things, or that healthy food is expensive, or that we eat this cheap food and we know that it's not good for us, but it's all we can afford. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It just depends on your priorities, and so we prioritize nutritionist food, good skincare and other personal care products over anything else. And because that's our priority, we make it fit into our budget. And that's how we've kind of decided to live and seen, just health in our kids. I had a friend, she was like, oh, what do you do for ear infections? And I was like, my kids have never had an ear infection. I'm not really sure. She's like, oh, they never had an ear infection. And I was like, now that I come to think about it, no. But we aren't pumping them full of sugar and wheat that's been all the bran removed, and it's just white flour that has no nutrition. And so if your body's not healthy, then of course it's going to get sick. And it's directly related to our environment, the products that we use, what we put on our skin, and what we eat. That is health. And so we got there from moving to the homestead and deciding we were just going to kind of do it. It was like the scary move, or people thought we were definitely nuts. And we were like, so what? We're going to learn. We're going to figure it out. And we, are so glad now. Actually, a lot of our family members are like, we want to do that. Or we want to come to the Homestead Festival. I want to learn.
My wife has always been a label reader and eating healthy. And in 2015, I decided no more fast food because that's just awful. So I've had, I think, fast food 3 times. And by the way, the Big Mac was the best burger I think I've ever eaten for about 5 minutes. And then I felt like trash. But there are things that I was almost addicted to in junk food. And Doritos. Okay. You can try to find a healthy version of Doritos. You're never going to find one that is as good as Doritos. No, because
they use artificial flavors.
Yes.
You can't reproduce the artificial flavor. It's not, even in the burger, the Big Mac, there's so many artificial flavors to make your taste buds excited, and these excitotoxins that make you get addicted to come back. That's part of their food, so that you come back and eat it again.
Yeah. And if you ever do a water cleanse, a 4-day water cleanse, or a water fast, where it's water.
Yeah.
Which I almost didn't survive because of my caffeine addiction. But the first thing you eat, you have never tasted anything that good. because your body is cleansed of all the trash that it's used to. You look at grape soda. Everything that's purple is supposed to be flavored like grape. Okay? Look at the organic versions of it. It's all clear because there's no artificial colors in it, which is hilarious. But our bodies are so desensitized that we need to get back where we eat a radish or something and there's like a flavor explosion. And I think the trash food that we eat just completely destroys your taste.
It does.
And gives you false tastes of. And
it also doesn't help that the tomato you buy at a Walmart tastes
like water,
like this table. Because it's a different variety. They're bred
they're greenhouse varieties, probably grown in no nutritious soil, and it has no flavor. Not like something you picked in your backyard.
But back to the amount of diet, isn't it? I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think it's like today, like 5% of our income is spent on the food we buy, whereas back in the day it was more like 25% of the income was used to purchase food.
Right.
And I mean, when people say that they can't afford to eat healthy, they're buying into the whole brainwashing of, cheap food. That's the system we're in.
Right. We subsidize all these farmers to grow all this corn and soy, which is like 90% of the junk food that we buy, and so that it's cheap. And so when we go to our local farmer, it absurdly thinks, we think that it's expensive, but it's not. That's actually what food costs, because it takes labor to produce that food, and it's not just some machine-made junk.
Well, I'm a sun guy. I love being in the sun, so I get burned every once in a while, but not much. But like for me, is my diet still going to dictate, even though I'm pretty dark-skinned, diet is still going to dictate if I'll burn or not, no matter on your skin tone?
Yes. I believe so, because we get really dark in the summer, but I won't burn anymore, or I'll see people who have always burned and don't, and then can actually get tan and dark. But I mean, obviously, the more melanin that you have in your skin, the less likely you are to burn. So you're still less likely than someone who's more fair.
Well, this has been super interesting. Where can they find your products?
So we are at toupsandco.com. We are at Toups Co Organics on Instagram. And that's it.
Do you ship product?
We ship product, the U.S., Canada, Australia, and Europe.
Okay. Now, I guess one more question. Were there any restrictions, like, that you had hoops to jump through to get your products being able to be sold, or not? It's not a regulated industry?
It's not regulated, no. So people think, well, if it's on the shelf, it must be safe because the FDA says so. But actually, there is no regulatory process at all for products until there's like a certain amount of complaints to the FDA. So if people are losing their hair or they're having some kind of problem or a reaction, there's more than X number of complaints to the FDA, then they'll come in and look at that exact product. But until then, no, any company in the United States can sell anything that they want. Now, Europe and other countries are a little bit different. They have so many more banned ingredients that there is, a little bit more regulation there. But I am not for government regulation. They're going to out-regulate the small man, and you won't have any more options. Then you only have the big people, because they're the only ones that can afford to jump through those hoops. And so someone asked me today, what about government regulation? You should go and you should lobby in D.C., and I was like, I don't want any government regulation at all. We need to equip ourselves with the knowledge to read on the back of the, we can't rely on the government to do that for us. We finally have got to take this into our own hands, learn to read a label, and make those decisions for our family, because we have the knowledge and the education.
And we have access to all that information
in
instantly.
Our pockets. Yes. We got a computer in our pockets today.
Well, this was really kind of different than anything we've ever sat down and talked about before.
Cool.
Makeup.
Sorry if we showed our stupidity.
No, I very much enjoyed it.
No. Yeah. Thank you so much. This was really eye-opening, and I will be using beef tallow.
Come by, go get some.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all.